Okay, good evening, everybody. Wednesday night, so Halacha and Tanya. The halacha that we started last time, two times ago, don't remember already, was basically medical issues, but practical medical, not the complicated medical issues. Those you need to speak to a Rav that deals with those types of issues. Okay, what I want to talk about today, or learn about today, is a little bit about medicine. Okay, you have medicine. Do you make a bracha medicine? Does it have to be kosher? Are you allowed to take medicine on Shabbos? Okay, so all these various different things, which are pretty relevant in a, people take medications, people take vitamins, people take all those types of things. So there's two issues. There's number one, issue of eating. It's forbidden to eat non-kosher things. And certain things you're not allowed to benefit from. Not only you can't eat it, but you can't benefit from it. For instance, one thing we learned that some things of meat and milk is forbidden not only to eat, but it's forbidden to benefit. So like we learned in the past, if you have dog food that has meat and milk in it together, generally speaking, it's not kosher to feed your animal, even though an animal doesn't have to keep kosher, but you are benefiting from that mixture of meat and milk, which is halachically forbidden to benefit from. Okay, now, if somebody could take, obviously, medication, which is kosher, so then they have to take kosher medicine. You can't just take trade for medicine for no reason. Now, what happens, though, if somebody can't? Okay, let's go to something else first. So let's say when you swallow a pill, obviously there's no taste to it. So you don't have to make a bracha. Obviously, you can't make a bracha on something you don't taste. But what happens if somebody's taking liquid medication or they're having chewable tablets, chewable medication? That's kosher, let's say. So now the question is, do I make a bracha medicine or not? So in halacha, it says the following. If it has a good taste, you make a bracha on it. If it has a bitter taste, it tastes awful, you don't make a bracha on it. What happens if you're eating it, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just like neutral. So then the Alter Rebbe brings down in Berchsanen that many people say you make a bracha on it. So then you would make a bracha medication. So if you're taking a very bitter medicine and it doesn't taste good at all, it tastes bad in fact, so then you do not have to make a bracha on it, even though you're benefiting from the medication, but you don't make a bracha on it. Or for instance, I'll give you another example. What happened, God forbid, well, not necessarily God forbid, if somebody has a feeding tube, or somebody is having intravenous, they're fed intravenously. So now obviously you don't make a bracha. You can make a bracha on a feeding tube that's in your stomach, or if you're being fed by intravenous, because the only time you make a bracha is when you eat something, you're not eating it. So now the question is like this. What about, do these medications have to be kosher? So for instance, somebody's having a feeding tube, okay? So the food goes straight into the stomach. It's not going into the mouth. It's not going down the throat. It's going straight into the stomach. So halachically, the food does not have to be kosher. As long as it's not meat and milk together, because then we just discussed, then you're benefiting from it. But if you have feeding tube, or you're fed intravenous, even though it's not kosher, it's not a problem. You're not eating it. Torah doesn't say you can't benefit from non-kosher. Now the question is, spiritually, does that have something in the spiritual realm? I don't know. I'm talking tonight halacha. Halachically, it's not a problem to have food in the feeding tube, as long as it's not food that you're not allowed to benefit from, like chametz on Pesach, or meat and milk, or various different things that is forbidden for a Jew to benefit from, not only eat it, because you're not really eating it. If you're not eating it, there's not a problem. Now the question is, what about these pills? can you swallow a pill for medication? Now, obviously, if it's a life-endangering situation, okay, then obviously the whole Torah becomes desecrated. Unless if it's three things: objects of idolatry, adultery, or murder. Those things, even to save a life, you're not allowed to do, because those are three mitzvahs you have to give up your life for. So therefore, in those cases, you wouldn't be allowed to take a medication or something that's idolatry. Or so I'll give you a simple example of this. Believe it or not, people have to check into this very, very carefully. A lot of these Eastern medication, Far Eastern medicinal things that they do, many of them are rooted in idol worshiping. And then you wouldn't be allowed to do it under any circumstance. These the holistic stuff, you have to be very, there's energy healing. I'm not saying it's definitely forbidden, but people have to keep in mind that anything which is rooted in idolatry, or it originates from Buddhism or Far Eastern religions, and those types of healings is biblically forbidden to do, even if your life is in danger. People have to keep that in mind. Not all healings or treatments are allowed. Now, for instance, another interesting thing, in the Gemara, there's a lot of healing processes. The Gemara says, if you have this, you do this. If you have this illness, you do this. But the Rishonim already, I'm talking about 950 years ago, they write that we don't do those things today, what the Gemara says. First of all, the body's changed. The human body changed in many, many ways. I mean, a simple thing was, years ago, if a woman was nursing, she didn't get pregnant. It was the best method of birth control. She just didn't get pregnant. Nowadays, we know it's not true. It's not because Torah said something wrong. It's the human body changed in such a way that those medications that worked in the time of the Gemara don't work today. And not only that, the poskim write that sometimes a person will misuse the remedies of the Gemara, and then they'll say, "Oh, you see, the Gemara is Bava Maisa." But anyway, it says you don't do those things today. Even the healings of the Rambam, some people are going to say, into that stuff, but the poskim write, even the healings of the Rambam, we don't listen to today, not because it wasn't Torah, it's just because the body's changed. And if the body's changed, those things that work then don't necessarily work today. So people have to be very careful when you do these Eastern healings and all that. You have to ask a shaila to make sure it's taka allowed to be done. I'll give you another off topic for a second. I know people do it, and just want to let you know it's not such a simple thing. There's a whole halachic question about yoga. The meditation of yoga is definitely rooted in idolatry. The exercises of yoga, according to many, many opinions, is also rooted, even the exercises are rooted in Avodah Zarah. I'm not saying you're not allowed. I'm just saying these are things that people don't even think about, that it could be a very big problem, not only in healing, but in a lot of other things. Okay, so you have like this. So if it's a medication that you eat, I don't mean eating, chewing, but you swallow it, you eat, like liquid medicine. Liquid medicine is a bigger problem of being kosher than a pill that you swallow. Because when you swallow a pill, you're not eating it. Halachically, you're not eating it. So therefore, you don't make a bracha on it. And therefore, if you don't make a bracha on it, then the question, does it have to be kosher? According to halacha, medicine that you swallow does not necessarily have to be kosher. Now, obviously, if you can get a similar medication that is kosher, and it works the same way, so then why take the treifa stuff if you can take the kosher stuff? But the problem is, many times, and this happens, like a person is anemic, so they're low in iron, and the doctor wants to prescribe iron pills. Now, you can get the kosher iron pills, that are basically not from the liver of a non-kosher animal, because most iron pills that are not synthetic are actually coming from the animal, from the liver of a treifa animal. So now the question is two things. Number one, am I allowed to swallow the pill? If it would be a liquid form, you wouldn't be allowed to take it because it's treifa, and you're eating it. You're tasting it, you're swallowing it, that's eating. So it would have to be kosher. All I'm adding to this is if somebody has to take a liquid medicine, and that's the only medicine they need to take, they could take, and it doesn't come in pill form, and it's not kosher, they have to ask a particular shaila in a particular case. The Rabbi will tell them, in that particular, is it an exception to the rule or not? But generally speaking, pills, because you swallow them, is not an issue. Now, I'll give you another example. Even capsules. Now, capsules a lot of medications today are made from capsules. So some are made what's called vegetarian capsules. They're called veggie caps, by the way. The glycerin is made from vegetables. So then it's kosher. Not only that, it's even better because let's say you have a veggie capsule. Even if the medicine inside the capsule, the powder, is treif, it doesn't matter because it's not you're blocking it with something. For instance, what happens? Some people have a machmir. Again, most people today are not machmir in it, but some people, if they have to take a pill, and the pill is not kosher, they're swallowing it. They'll wrap it in a napkin, little piece of paper or a lettuce, and they'll swallow it that way. So then the pill's not even touching the throat. And then in Bachlal, according to almost everybody, then it's for sure not even an issue. But just swallowing pills, just like that, wouldn't be an issue. In fact, many poskim talk about this. It's not called eating because it's not even touching your throat, let alone you're not tasting it. But again, halachically, if you have a capsule, even if it's a gelatin capsule, halachically, you're allowed to swallow it. If some people wrap it into something and swallow it that way, that's the Yerei Shemayim, but halachically, because you're not eating it, it could be swallowed as is. So now you have what happens. Some poskim write another thing. What happens if you have to take a liquid? Okay, and so some poskim write, if possible, if you could put something bitter into the food, not dangerously bitter, but making it bitter, then again, it's not a problem because again, that's not the normal way of eating it. You don't eat bitter things, that are not, I don't mean bitter foods, spicy foods. Saying if you put something into it that normally people don't eat it, there wouldn't be a problem. Okay, so then again, these things, but the bottom line is, if somebody can get pills that are kosher, they should get kosher pills. If they can't, they're allowed to swallow the pill. If it's something that you're chewing, the chewable pill, chewable tablets, or liquid, or for that matter, powder. Many medications, they give you a powder. You have to mix it with water and drink it that way. That's also, again, then you're eating it. So all these issues need to be taken carefully into consideration to know what you're allowed to take and what you're not allowed to take. If the doctor says you must take it and it's a dangerous situation, somebody has high blood pressure or whatever it is, the things which then it's a din of a person that's in a dangerous situation. But again, feeding tubes will not be an issue. Feeding intravenously will not be an issue. Swallowing pills won't be an issue. If you have to chew it, drink it, or powder, then you have issues that are big kosher. Now, what's the story with vitamins? Vitamins really, halachically, are not medicine. They're not. In fact, many doctors will tell you that if you don't need the vitamins, you shouldn't be taking them because they're just going out of your system anyway. Okay? So now, vitamins is stricter, by the way, halachically, than regular medicine. Because now the question is, do I need these medicine, these vitamins. Do I need to take them or not? So if they're kosher vitamins, that's fine. If they're not kosher vitamins, so again, you should discuss it with the Rav. If it's something that the doctor says you really need, okay? During COVID, they were telling you to take zinc and vitamin D and all that stuff. So again, if somebody needs it, the doctor says to take it, then you could swallow the pill. Because even though it's not kosher, again, you're not eating it. But if it's something that you could do, the vitamin you could do without, or a lot of times people want to give kids chewable vitamins, for kids to take, it might be a nice thing to take vitamins, but if the vitamins are not kosher, you shouldn't really be taking it because they're chewable. And then you have a taste of the food. You're eating it, and it's not kosher. So vitamins really is something that people should be careful about. If they're not kosher, not to take them. But again, if a doctor says you really need to take them, then you should take them. Then they should be taken, and there's not an issue. Now, what about taking medicine on Shabbos? Okay, there's also an issue. Now, let me explain the issue with medicine on Shabbos. By the way, I just want to mention something which is interesting. People are totally unaware of it. If you look at your basic painkillers, okay, if you look at Advil, Tylenol, those types of things, and you look at the ingredients, you will see a lot of times there's in the ingredients magnesium stearate. Now, magnesium stearate is an animal derivative, just for the record. Again, I'm not saying you're not allowed to take it, because if you're not popping Tylenol or Advil, obviously you're not feeling well. So again, there's a heter to take it. But I'm just saying people should be aware that a lot of these vitamins, that even the pills, you can think, what's treif about them? The answer is there are treif ingredients, such as magnesium stearate and other things, that be questionable if they're even kosher or not. Glycerin could be animal derivative, or it could be vegetable derivative. Gelatin, generally speaking, is a treif. So, you have a lot of these things that people have to be aware of in a medication. And now what's the story with Shabbos? So let me explain the problem with taking medicine on Shabbos. One of the lamitas malachos is teichen, which is grinding. It's biblically forbidden to grind things that grow from the ground on Shabbos. Things that grow from the ground, it's biblically forbidden to grind them, meaning chopping them up into small little particles. So therefore, in Talmudical times, you are not allowed to take medicine on Shabbos, unless, obviously, if it's a life-endangering situation. Why? Because the Chachamim said, rabbinically, if you're making medication, how did they make medication in the olden times? Medication, basically, even today, is herbs. Okay? It's herbs. If the doctor tells you that you need to take vitamin, then it's okay to take it. I'm just saying people taking stuff on their own. If a doctor says you need to take vitamins, halachically, you could take them. Now, how are the, even today, homeopathic medications, basically, they take herbs. There's very little synthetic stuff in there. They take herbs and they grind it up. And then they put it into a pill or a capsule, whatever it is, and that's the medication. So according to halacha, because there's a biblical malacha of not grinding on Shabbos, so therefore, halachically, the Chachamim said, you're not allowed to take pills on Shabbos. You're not allowed to take medicine on Shabbos. Why? Because again, years ago, people would make their own medications, much more than they do today. And therefore, the Chachamim said, again, unless if it's a life-endangering situation, you're not allowed to take medicine on Shabbos. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. That's what the poskim write. In fact, it's interesting. According to the Litvische poskim, Rabbi Yosef Shusterman, a lot of the Litvische, poskim, the non-Chassidic poskim, you're not allowed to take aspirins on Shabbos. You're not allowed to take Advil, Tylenol on Shabbos. In the Chassidish poskim, the Minchas Elazar, others, and that's the Kseisav Shulchan, that's the way we hold. If somebody needs to take Tylenol, Advil, aspirin, whatever they're taking in Shabbos, they could take it. Because if you're in pain, the whole body. Now, so there are poskim in halacha that say that because today people don't make their own medicines, it's made by a company. Okay, so therefore the fear of people grinding herbs that grow from the ground to make medicine is not something which is done today. So it's something which is uncommon. So therefore they want to say, not that God forbid it's allowed, but it's much easier halachically today than it was in the olden times. Therefore, it's like this. If a person, I'm talking practical halacha now, if somebody is on a 10-day regimen of antibiotic, now obviously there's a Shabbos there. So then halacha is clear, you're allowed to continue taking the antibiotics in Shabbos. Okay, it's clear. You could take the antibiotics in Shabbos. Self-understood, let's say somebody has to take the medication 3 times a day. Okay? So if it's a long Friday, let's say, if it was now before they changed the clocks in the summer, so then obviously what you should try to do is take the 3 times before Shabbos begins. The 3rd dose, take before Shabbos, 8 o'clock anyway. So take it before Shabbos begins. The 3rd dose, Saturday night, take after Shabbos ends. So you're minimizing the amount of times that you're taking the medication on Shabbos. The same thing in the short days. So you can't take 3 times on Friday. It's going to be difficult because Shabbos comes in, let's say, at 5 o'clock. So it's going to be difficult. So you try to minimize, but so Shabbos, you try to take maybe 2 dosages after Shabbos, 1 in the morning, whatever a person could do. But halachically, if you're on a regimen of antibiotic for 3 days, so then you're allowed to take the antibiotics in Shabbos. Not only that, halacha says, what happens if you got the prescription filled Friday afternoon? So you'll think, you know what, maybe I'll start Saturday night. Then I'll only have to take it for 1 Shabbos, not 2. Halacha says, no, you can start Friday night, you can start Shabbos. You don't push it off that in order to have, less medications on Shabbos. So if somebody's on antibiotics, they're allowed to take the medication on Shabbos. Again, in our world, we take if somebody has a headache or they're in pain or they want to take a Tylenol, Advil, aspirin. Again, in our circles, the Chassidish poskim hold that you are allowed to take those things in Shabbos. But people should be careful taking vitamins on Shabbos. If you don't need to take the vitamin, even if the doctor says, it's good to take once a day, take a vitamin. Like somebody said, vitamin D. Okay? So if that's what you're taking it, for argument's sake, once a day. So why do you have to take a dafka on Shabbos? Take once on Friday before Shabbos begins, and take the second one after Shabbos ends. It's a vitamin. It's not medication that you need 3 times a day. If there's a medication that you're taking once a day, it's logical that on Shabbos you shouldn't take it. Take it before Shabbos, take it after Shabbos, and that's it. Vitamins, medicine that people take on a regular basis, not only antibiotic, on a regular basis, like people take heart medication and blood pressure medication. Everybody takes a lot of medications today. So then the din is you could take it on Shabbos, for sure. And you're not allowed to not take it on Shabbos, because those are pills that you need, which are very important for the health of the person. Okay. Now, what else is there with medications? But again, if it's liquid or powder, it's a more difficult thing. Now, there's another interesting thing that the Rebbe says. What happens if you're taking medicine that you would never eat as a food, but you're only taking it for medicinal purpose? I'll give you an example. Somebody, let's say, hates tea. They hate tea. They don't drink tea. Okay, let's not use the word hate on Hashem's food. A person doesn't like tea. They don't drink tea. Now they have a sore throat, they have a bad cold, so they want to drink tea with lemon. Okay? Which the Rebbe told people when they had a cold to take tea with lemon. So now the question is, they are taking it only for medicinal purposes. They're not taking it because they're drinking tea. The question is, can they take that on Shabbos because it's really medicinal for them? And now the Rebbe says in Hilchos Shabbos that because it's a food that people eat or drink, it's not a problem taking it on Shabbos, even though you personally are taking it for medicinal purposes. Something which is not a food, like pills and things like medicine, pills and vitamins and things like that, that's a different story. Because it looks like medicine. And the Alter Rebbe says vitamins you should preferably not take on Shabbos, unless the doctor says you have to take it. But other medicinal things, which are food, and you're eating it for health purposes, the fact that it's a food, the Alter Rebbe holds clearly in Hilchos Shabbos that you're allowed to take that medicine, that food on Shabbos, even though you personally are only taking for medicinal purposes, because the bottom line is that it's a food, it's not anything else. Okay, one more din over here. We mentioned it briefly last time, but to go in for the 3 minutes we have until we go to Tanya. By the way, I just want to say a very important story with the Tzemach Tzedek, because not today, but we're going to discuss end of life issues and just the general, not paskin, just the people should be aware of the issues that come up on a regular basis. There are books and books and books and Svarim written on medical ethics and medicinal halacha, which is sometimes very, very complicated when you talk about a difference between life and death. But there's a story in the city of Lubavitch, in the city of Lubavitch, in the Tzemach Tzedek's time, there was a Jew that became ill. And the doctors came to see him on Shabbos, and the doctor prescribed a medicine for him on Shabbos. The person was pretty sick. So the problem was there was no pharmacy in Lubavitch. So the Tzemach Tzedek said somebody should take a horse on Shabbos, go to the next city, and get the medicine. So the person said to the Tzemach Tzedek, but the person's not going to live long anyway. I mean, it's a very dangerous thing. The guy might die on Shabbos yet. Like, why are you desecrating Shabbos for a guy that's, might die anyway? And this is a very important statement that Tzemach Tzedek said that according to us is a very deep lesson, even in halacha. Tzemach Tzedek said, we have no comprehension how precious it is by Hashem every second that the neshama of a Jew is in the body. We have no idea how precious it is every second that the neshama of a Jew is in the body. And therefore the din of Shulchan Aruch is, what happens is somebody's deathly ill and you're going to desecrate Shabbos, but they're going to die anyway on Shabbos. Do you just let them die not to desecrate Shabbos, or you desecrate Shabbos anyway? And the halacha clears in Shulchan Aruch that you desecrate Shabbos even for Chai Shah, even for the person to stay alive a little bit more. You desecrate Shabbos because that's how important the nefesh, the neshama of a Jew, is to be in the person's body. Okay, we're going to go to Tanya now.